G'day, guys and gal. No one likes to try hard, and no one tries harder than Be'lakor, the first ever demon prince in existence. This cocky ass kicker has fallen from being the proud son of chaos all the way to being the character that everybody, even peasants, like to throw shit at and laugh at. How did this spooky shadow demon fall so far? Well, as I said, no one likes to try hard. The awesome thing about doing a video on Be'lakor is that he exists in both 40k and fantasy, so this video shouldn't tank like a normal fantasy video, but I can still say I cover fantasy lore. Win-win. Don't worry. Be'lakor's lore across 40k and fantasy is actually quite consistent. He's basically forced to gargle the balls of Chaos's chosen one, and any attempt he makes to cease said gargling results in him getting clapped hard and forced to re-gargle. Before I get started, after many setbacks, long nights and stress, all Majorkill minis have been sent out and quite a large number of them have already arrived, and as I promised, I would feature them once they were painted. This one was by Blake, and I reckon he did a pretty good job. The white skull helmet is a nice touch. If you bought the Majorkill mini and want your painting skills to be seen by dozens of thousands of people, then shoot me a photo of the finished product and I'll feature it, as long as it's not dog shit. Today we'll go over who Be'lakor is and where he comes from. We'll then go over his lore for both 40k and fantasy, before wrapping up what he is currently up to. Let's get into it. Be'lakor's origins kinda contradict the lore in both 40k and fantasy, but by using big brain and healthy ego, I figured out how to explain them whilst not violating GW's messy canon. Be'lakor was the first demon to be created by Chaos in both settings. When the Chaos gods were not completely sentient, confident, or distinguishable, they poured their spite, power, and malice into a single being, Be'lakor, who would go out and fulfill their will. Now in 40k, an issue arises in that the gods of Chaos are not fully formed and they were dormant, so how would they create a demon that was able to conquer empires, all the while not getting raped by the huge and powerful Eldar Empire? This can be explained by the Chaos gods being dormant but still existing, creating a being based on their primitive subconscious instincts rather than deliberate thoughts. This also explains why Be'lakor is such a little shit to his ruinous daddies. He was created when they weren't very good at creating. The Eldar Empire was also large, but it didn't encompass nearly the entire galaxy, so there was definitely room in the dark corners of the galaxy for Be'lakor to rule thousands of planets. When he was created, Be'lakor was like a cute little puppy to the Chaos gods, hence they all competed with one another for his affection, turning the Dark Master into a little brat who thought he could manipulate his creators for power. However, as the Chaos gods began to wake up and develop critical thinking, they realized they could create demons purely loyal to themselves instead of this Chaos Undivided nonsense. So they did, taking their attention and power away from Be'lakor and giving it to their new children who didn't question their authority. Be'lakor, like any only child who is now no longer the center of attention, lost his shit and begun to rage, killing any Chaos-aligned creature who he thought was more loved than him, believing himself to still be free-willed and uncaged by his creators. Ironically, by him killing other demons in an act of defiance, he was engaging in the great game that the Chaos gods like to play. For every demon of Khorne he killed, the other gods were empowered, and so on. Be'lakor unknowingly played this game, his desperation for his daddies to love him fueling him forward. In fantasy, another lore issue with his origins arises. As I said, he was the first demon and apparently ruled over all the mortals for a time before the elves knocked him off his high horse. This makes no sense, as the old ones were the rulers of the world and the lore is very clear about when Chaos first entered the world. This can be fixed in canon by saying that Be'lakor was the master of the previous Warhammer Fantasy world, as the end time states that Warhammer Fantasy is a cycle of planets being created and then destroyed by Chaos, with the survivors of that planet's destruction going to the next planet to begin anew. A big difference between fantasy and 40k is that the Chaos gods from 40k are untouchable and find it funny when their demon underlings get cocky or try to arc up to them. Hence when Be'lakor was being a dick in 40k, they told him to fuck off and then forgot about him. However, in fantasy, the Chaos gods are much more vulnerable and take threats and disobedience way more seriously. Hence when Be'lakor was being a brat and wanted to become a 5th Chaos god, Titsnitch instead cursed him by removing his physical form as well as any traces of free will he had, all the while allowing Be'lakor to maintain his mind so he could rage at his newfound bitch-ass state of being. A part of that curse meant that Be'lakor would also be forced to crown each of Chaos's Everchosens, aka Chaos's new favourite boy toys, aka the role Be'lakor had in the previous world. The amount of jealousy Be'lakor feels as a result of this is astounding. Like, the dude probably rage ruptures his scrotum every time he has to place his crown on the head of some Norskin fuckwit who can't count past 10. That was a bit of a tongue twister that took me about 10 tries. He's tried a number of times to break the curse, even possessing one of the potential Everchosens, but outsmarting Titsnitch can only be done by a small girl with her dog, so his attempts always fail miserably. The only thing that burns brighter than Be'lakor's jealousy is his frustration. He has watched quite a number of Everchosens get their shit kicked in by ugly, bold religious men, and I can understand why he'd be so mad. If he was leading the Chaos armies, he probably could perform better than the blessed Norskins that kept getting killed, so in that way, Chaos could be shooting itself in the foot, but I do find it pretty funny that they would rather fuck with Be'lakor than actually overtake the world. So now we know the origins of Be'lakor in both 40k and fantasy. What is he currently up to? In 40k, Be'lakor noticed Abaddon's rise to power, as well as the favour the Chaos Gods begun to show him, hence he latched onto Abaddon like a junkie chick latches onto her pimp. He began subtly guiding Abaddon from the shadows, helping him become the new War Master of Chaos, but also seemingly hurting him in the long term. It's become increasingly obvious by Be'lakor's ass kissing, as well as his desire to always be ready to swoop in, not to mention his pretty cocky random attack on Terra, that at the peak of Abaddon's achievements, Be'lakor wants to swoop in, dispose of Abaddon, and then take credit as well as control of Chaos once again. This will undoubtedly backfire horrifically, with Abaddon being able to randomly beat Be'lakor due to his obscene levels of plot armor, but I'm still keen to see it go down. As of yet, Be'lakor has taken part in the 13th Black Crusade as well as the battles of the Great Rift, so it still seems like he's biding his time before he betrays Abaddon. In fantasy, Be'lakor was very involved with Archaon's rise to power, considering he was technically his dad. See, Be'lakor was the one who raped Archaon's mother, hence Archaon was pretty tainted from birth. From there, Archaon actually died quite a number of times, however Be'lakor would always do some warp spaghetti to either prevent the death or bring him back to life. This is kinda where the Never Chosen meme comes from, as Archaon needed a walking bit of plot armor called Be'lakor in order to become the Everchosen. Be'lakor's intentions was to raise up Archaon, and then due to him being his dad, possess him and take his spot as the true Everchosen. In the semi-canon Storms of Chaos, he is somehow able to remove Titsnitch's curse and lead the demonic part of Chaos's armies. He revives and binds the dead Volkmar to his battle standard and ends up dueling Luon Leon Kerr, before retreating to the battle due to being lost and Volkmar breaking free of Be'lakor's curse. He would attack again in the final battle, however Teclis would just Thanos snap him back to the realms of chaos. In the unfortunately canon end times, Be'lakor hatched a plan to not only free himself of Titsnitch, but also become a Chaos God. He was able to break into a hidden Dawi hold and absorb the power of a Chaos Gate, the very gate that Grimnir walked through to kick Chaos's ass. By absorbing its power, he could take physical form and summoned 4 greater demons to him. His next step of planning was to then stab Grimnir in the back and absorb his power, hence becoming the 5th Chaos God. But then Gotrek and Felix rocked up and fucked him up, denying his shot at godhood. Be'lakor escaped south and then tried to eat Lilith and become a Chaos God that way, but the heroes, led by Tyrion, once again whooped his ass and trapped him into a magical tiara, where he stayed for the rest of the end times. That's gotta be rough. Now, despite the tiara apparently being indestructible and inescapable, he has re-emerged in Age of Sigmar, where he has once again begun wagging his cock around acting like he's the best, but it wasn't long before he was promptly curb stomped by some lizardmen and went back to being a simp for Archaon. He's still plotting to overthrow Archaon, but he probably just tells himself that to make him feel better. At this rate, Felix is a better shot at overthrowing Archaon, and Felix isn't even in the fucking setting. Be'lakor is a powerful and pretty cool looking demon prince. He's got an awesome sword called the Blade of Shadows, which kinda looks like the Darksaber from Star Wars, as well as a pretty sweet model. He's the kinda guy to create elaborate schemes just cause he wants to, and not because it actually helps him achieve his goal. He is dark, but he is no master. He's just a spoiled brat throwing a tantrum to get the attention of his uncaring creators, all the while trying to pretend he's some kind of top tier demonic Sherlock Holmes. And that does us for today guys, the lore and story of Be'lakor for both 40k and fantasy. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where only $1 per month gives you access to a boatload of Warhammer hentai. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the real subscribe button for more masterful content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.